Here we have starter code for the event class. We are asked to complete every method according to its docstring, and to fill in the examples in the docstrings where appropriate. We're going to start with the init method, with the initializer, and make sure that this event has the correct instance variables as described in the docstring. So we're going to need 3 instance variables: start time, end time, and name. To make these instance variables, we have to make sure that we prefix them with self. This object that we are about to create needs a start time, an end time, and a name. And we're going to set each of these in turn. Self.startTime means the start time instance variable of this particular object of class event. And we're going to set it to the parameter start time that comes into the initializer. End time we're going to set to the parameter end time. Self.name we're going to set to event name. That is all we need to do for the initializer. The important things here are to remember to add self before each instance variable. Then we have the method rename. Before we can write the method rename, we should add a correct example for rename. How will this look in code? I want the object E. I want to execute the rename method of the object E. A new name, say 11z's. Then I want to make sure the change has been completed. So I will ask for e.name, and hopefully I will get 11z's and not lunch. Notice that e.rename does not return anything, which is consistent with our docstring type contract, which says that it should return a none-type object. Okay, now in the body of the rename, we need to take the name instance variable of this object and change it to whatever new name we like. Move on to the duration method. Our docstring and examples are filled in for us, so all we have to do is add duration. The duration of this event is going to be the end time of the event minus the start time of the event, returned as an integer. So we return self.endTime, which is the end time of this object, minus self.startTime, which is the start time of this object. Then we have the string method for the event class. This is the string representation of this event object, and we would like it to look as it looks in the example. We know we will be returning a string. Now we have to build up that string from the parts that we'd like to know about the event. First, I'm going to populate this with a string, which is the name of the event. I will add a colon, a space, from, and then I will have a decimal integer and another decimal integer, like so. Now these are, everything in the curly braces is a gap that I will populate with the following 3 variables in order. What goes in the first spot is self.name. What goes in the second slot is self.startTime, and what goes in the third slot is self.endTime. Alright, so I've composed a string by inserting self.name, self.startTime, and self.endTime into the 3 empty spots in the string that I'd like to return. Next, we would like to complete the equality method. This method will return true if and only if this object we're looking at is equal, whatever that means, to some other object that we're looking at. According to the docstring, this means that they have to have the same start time, end time, and name. Okay, let's complete the example. We have another event, E2, which is also an event, and it also starts at 6, ends at 7, and is called run. We'd like to know if these 2 events are equal, And we can do this because EQ is a system method that actually corresponds to the operator for equality. We can actually use E1 equals E2. And we hope that this will return true. Okay, now to write the method, I will return false if anything about these two events is different. This will look like this. If our event's start time is different from other events' start time, I will return false. If our end time is different from others' end time, I will return false. If our name is different from the name of the other event, I will return false. And in every other case, meaning that all three of those things are the same, I will return true. You could do all of this on one line, of course.
Here's the preferred, simpler, one-line solution that we referred to. Now let's move on to implementing the overlaps method. This method checks whether two events have starting and end times that overlap with each other. For example, events E1 and E2 do overlap because the first starts at 6 a.m. and ends at 7, while the second starts at midnight and ends at 7 a.m. There are several different ways that events can overlap with each other, and this image shows a variety of different possibilities. This can get quite complicated to express using Python. So instead of expressing all of the situations in which two events overlap, let's take a simpler approach and express the situations in which they don't overlap. To express this in Python, we'll check whether others' end time is before or at self-start time, or whether others' start time comes at or after self's end time. This expresses when two events do not overlap, and so we'll negate it to express when they do overlap.